The wind howled like a beast across the frozen plains, carrying flakes of ice sharp enough to cut skin. Inside a small hover truck, a human man named Eli gripped the steering controls tightly. His daughter, Mira, sat beside him, wrapped in 2 layers of blankets. Outside, the temperature had dropped below -50, and even the truck's heaters struggled to keep up. They were traveling to an old research outpost, one of the few places that still had working shelters in this icy wasteland. The planet, once a green colony world, had turned into a frozen grave after the orbit shifted decades ago. "Dad?" Mira said softly, looking at the endless snow ahead. "How much longer?" "Not far," Eli replied, his voice calm but strained. "Once we reach Outpost Delta, we'll rest for the night." The storm thickened, and soon the truck's sensors began to flicker. Eli frowned. "Signal interference again," he muttered. "Stay calm, sweetheart." He slowed the vehicle and followed the faint beacon from the outpost. The air outside roared like thunder. After another 10 minutes, the faint shape of a metal tower appeared through the snow. The outpost looked abandoned, half buried under ice, its doors jammed open by frozen hinges. Eli parked the truck beside it and helped Mira climb out. The wind hit them hard. Mira held her father's arm tightly as they pushed through the snow toward the entrance. Inside, the outpost was dark and silent. Frost covered the walls like white dust. Eli used his portable light to clear a small area near the heating vent and started the generator. The weak hum of energy filled the air and the heaters slowly came alive. Finally, Mira whispered, sitting beside the heater and rubbing her small hands together. "It's so cold, Dad." "I know," Eli said softly, smiling at her. "We'll be fine here tonight." He checked their supplies, 2 ration packs, a few fuel cells, and 1 small power battery left. Just enough to survive until morning. He looked out the cracked window, watching the storm rage outside. Then, a sound, faint, muffled, almost like a cry. Mira's head lifted. "Dad, did you hear that?" Eli paused, listening. There was only the wind. "It's probably the storm," he said, returning to the heater. But a few seconds later it came again. Louder this time. A weak, trembling wail like that of a baby crying far away. Mira stood up. "Dad, that's not the wind." Eli frowned, walking toward the door. "Stay here," he said firmly. "I'll check." "No. Please, let me come with you," she begged. He sighed. "All right, but stay close." They stepped back into the storm. The snow bit their faces as Eli used his flashlight to scan the area. The cry echoed again, carried by the wind coming from somewhere near the cliffs behind the outpost. They trudged forward, snow crunching under their boots. Mira held her father's hand tight. The light from the flashlight caught something, a strange metallic shape half buried in the ice. Eli moved closer. It was a crashed pod, alien design, curved metal, glowing blue marks along its side. The outer shell was cracked open. Inside, he saw a figure slumped over another smaller form. "Dad?" Mira whispered, her eyes wide. It's a mother and child." Eli knelt beside the pod, brushing away the ice. The larger figure was an alien woman, her skin pale gray with faint silver veins glowing faintly under the surface. Her breathing was weak, shallow. In her arms lay a small child, barely alive, trembling violently. "Dad, her child is freezing." Mira cried out, her voice breaking. Eli didn't hesitate. He pulled off his thick jacket and wrapped it around the child. The small alien whimpered softly, its skin cold as stone. The mother stirred faintly, eyes half open. She looked at him with fear and confusion. Eli lifted his hand slowly to show peace. "It's okay," he said softly. "We're not here to hurt you." The alien mother's lips moved, but only a soft whisper came out, words in a language he couldn't understand. Then her head fell back and she went still. "Dad!" Mira's voice shook. "She's not breathing." "She's alive," Eli said, checking her pulse. "But she's fading fast." "We need to move now." He lifted the alien woman over his shoulder and cradled the child in his arms. The cold cut through his clothes as he hurried back toward the outpost. Mira ran ahead, clearing the path through the snow. Inside, the heaters were still on. Eli laid the woman and child near the vent, rubbing their arms to restore warmth. Mira held the child close, whispering gently, "You'll be okay. You'll be okay." Eli looked at the alien mother's face. She was beautiful, strange, and fragile. He had seen alien species before during the wars, but none like her. There was something almost human in her features. When he touched her hand, a faint pulse of light traveled across her skin, like a heartbeat of energy. He froze for a moment, staring in disbelief. Then the storm outside roared louder, like something had just entered orbit above them. Eli's eyes went to the window. In the distance, through the snow, a faint red light blinked across the sky. Not lightning. Not a beacon. Something else, he whispered. We're not alone out here. Mira looked up at him, holding the alien child tighter. Dad, what's happening? Eli stared into the storm, his jaw set. I don't know, sweetheart, he said. But we just found something the whole galaxy might be looking for. And outside, high above the frozen clouds, a dark ship began to descend, silent, watching, and searching. The storm had not stopped all night. The wind beat against the walls of the outpost like fists trying to break in. Inside, the air was thick with cold and worry. Eli sat beside the alien woman, checking her pulse again. It was still weak, but there. The little alien child lay in Mira's lap, wrapped in his jacket, tiny chest rising and falling with fragile breaths. Mira's eyes were red from staying awake. Dad, she whispered. She's not waking up. She will, Eli said, though even he wasn't sure. He had treated wounds before, but this was different. Her skin wasn't like theirs. It was thin, almost like glass, and underneath it, faint blue lines of light flickered, as if energy itself flowed through her veins. He turned on the small heater closer to her. The frost on her hair began to melt, revealing strands that shimmered silver in the dim light. Who are you? Eli muttered under his breath. What were you doing out there? The alien woman suddenly coughed, soft but sharp. Her body shivered violently. Mira gasped and rushed to her side. She's waking up, the girl said, hope lighting her face. The woman's eyes fluttered open. They were bright silver blue, glowing faintly in the dark. She looked around in panic and tried to sit up, but her strength failed. She fell back, whispering something in her language. Eli leaned closer. Easy, easy. You're safe. We're not going to hurt you. Her gaze moved from him to Mira, then to her own child. When she saw the little one breathing, wrapped in warm fabric, her glowing eyes filled with tears. Her trembling hand reached toward the child, but she couldn't touch. She looked back at Eli and whispered one broken word. Thank you. Eli's heart sank. You can understand me? She nodded weakly, her voice fragile. A little. Translator. Broken. Don't speak, he said quickly. Rest, but she shook her head. Her hand weakly pointed toward her chest, then the ceiling. Crash. Ship. Enemy. Chasing. Eli frowned. Enemy? The woman nodded again, fear in her eyes. They come. Before Eli could ask more, the outpost's scanner began to beep faintly. A red light blinked on the small monitor near the door. Mira turned to look. Dad, what's that? Eli froze. Motion sensors. Something's moving outside. He walked to the control panel and switched the display to the exterior camera. The screen was snowy and static-filled, but through the blur he could make out dark shapes moving fast across the ice. Not animals. Machines. Drones. Eli muttered. Search units. The alien woman's eyes widened. They found us? Mira grabbed her father's arm, frightened. Dad, what do we do? Eli's jaw tightened. We hide. Now. He quickly pulled open a hatch in the floor, a maintenance tunnel from the old research days. Mira, help her. Get her and the child down there. Mira nodded and carefully helped the alien woman move, though she was weak. Eli grabbed his old rifle from the supply crate. It wasn't much, just a plasma repeater, but it was better than nothing. They climbed down into the tunnel just as the outpost door above shook with impact. The sound of metal against metal echoed through the floor. Mira gasped as dust fell from the ceiling. Shh, Eli whispered. Don't make a sound. They crouched in the dark tunnel. The heaters above went silent as the power cut off. Cold returned instantly, creeping through the air. From above they could hear mechanical footsteps and a strange humming sound. The alien woman clutched her child close. Her eyes glowed faintly in the dark, illuminating the small space. She looked at Eli with sorrow and whispered, They kill. All witnesses. Eli's stomach turned. He'd seen things like this during his time in the frontier wars. Cleanup units sent not to rescue but to erase. One of the drones moved directly above the hatch. A red beam scanned the area. The tunnel glowed briefly as the light passed over the metal. Eli held his breath, hand tightening on the rifle. For a long moment there was silence, only the wind outside. Then slowly the noise faded. The drones moved away. Mira exhaled shakily. Are they gone? Eli waited another minute before answering. For now. He climbed up carefully and looked through a crack in the hatch. The snowstorm had cleared slightly. The drones were heading east following something else. Maybe the storm had masked their heat signature. He climbed back down. We're safe. For now. The alien woman looked up weakly. You save us again. Eli shook his head. I'm just keeping my daughter safe. You were part of that, she smiled faintly. Your daughter. Brave. Mira blushed a little but smiled too. I just wanted to help. The alien woman looked at her with warmth, her eyes soft. In my world, you would be honored. Eli helped her lie down again, covering her and the child with more blankets. Rest, you'll need your strength. We'll move at dawn. Outside, the storm began to fade, revealing a pale blue sunrise over the frozen horizon. For the first time in days, the wind was quiet. But on that horizon, far away, 3 dark lights blinked in formation. Ships descending. Eli didn't see them yet, but he could feel it, the calm before something worse. He looked at his daughter and whispered, We're not just rescuing strangers. Mira, we're in the middle of someone else's war. And the alien woman, barely awake, murmured under her breath in her language, one haunting phrase that even the broken translator managed to catch. They will not stop until we're all gone. The morning came pale and silent. The storm had calmed, but the world outside was still covered in thick ice and quiet snow. Eli opened the door of the outpost carefully, scanning the horizon. No movement, only the soft crackle of frozen air. He stepped out and checked the remains of the alien pod they had found last night. The wind had almost buried it, but the glowing marks along its side still pulsed faintly, like a dying heartbeat. Eli brushed away the ice and looked inside. The main console was fried, but a small data drive blinked weakly, a sign that something still worked. He pocketed it and went back inside. Mira sat beside the heater, feeding the small alien child with a spoonful of warm soup. The little one made tiny sounds, its skin color slowly returning from gray to soft silver blue. The alien woman, still weak, watched with tired but grateful eyes. When Eli entered, Mira looked up. Dad, she tried to talk again, she said softly. The woman nodded faintly. Name, Lyra, she whispered. Her voice was soft but clearer now, the translator implant sparking faint blue lights near her neck. She pointed to the child. My son, Kiro. Mira smiled. Hi, Kiro. The little alien blinked at her and gave a weak smile back. Eli crouched near the heater, holding up the small data drive he'd found. Lyra, is this from your ship? Her eyes widened. She reached for it with trembling fingers. Yes, memory core. She looked at him seriously. Must keep safe. If they find it, everything ends, Eli frowned. What's inside? She hesitated. Her gaze shifted toward Kiro, then back at him. Hope, she said simply. Mira tilted her head. Hope? Lyra nodded. My people dying. No more children born for many cycles. I carried cure inside my ship, but they destroyed it. She looked at the data drive in his hand. This last copy. Eli felt his chest tighten. You mean that small file can save your species? Yes, Lyra whispered. But enemies want it gone. They say no more life for my kind. Only silence. Mira looked at her father, fear in her eyes. Dad, we can't let them find it. Eli nodded slowly. We won't. He placed the drive in his jacket's hidden pocket where he used to keep field maps back in his military days. Then he looked at Lyra. Those drones last night, they were hunting you, weren't they? She nodded weakly. Yes, hunters, not from my people. Mercenaries from other stars. They erase witnesses. Eli rubbed his face. I figured. He stood and walked toward the door, staring out into the frozen distance. If they sent drones, that means a larger unit isn't far behind. Lyra looked down sadly. You should leave. Save your child. They will come again. Eli turned, his expression firm. I'm not leaving anyone behind. Mira smiled proudly at her father. Told you he's stubborn, she said to Lyra. The alien woman gave a weak laugh, soft, like wind through glass. But the quiet didn't last. A faint beeping sound came from the scanner again. This time, Eli walked over quickly and checked the signal. It wasn't drones, it was something above them. A ship. He zoomed in. The reading showed a vessel in low orbit, too small for a carrier, too big for a fighter. Someone's scanning the surface, Eli muttered. They're looking for us. Mira stood, holding the child protectively. Dad, what do we do? Eli's mind raced. We need to move. If we stay here, they'll lock onto the heat signature. He looked at Lyra. Can you walk? She nodded slowly. Yes, little. He helped her up, wrapping her in a blanket. Mira carried Kiro close to her chest. Together, they stepped out into the cold once more. The air was clearer now, sunlight breaking through the clouds like shards of gold. The frozen plain stretched endlessly, and in the distance, black smoke from the crashed pod still rose faintly. They trudged through the snow, heading toward the mountains. Eli knew an old mining tunnel system was hidden there, long abandoned but deep enough to hide them. As they walked, Lyra spoke in broken English. You risk much. For strangers, Eli glanced at her. You're not strangers anymore. She looked at Mira and Kiro walking hand in hand. The sight made her eyes soften again. Your people, kind. Not like others said. Eli gave a faint smile. People talk too much. Suddenly, a sharp sound cracked through the air. A blast of energy hit the ground nearby, throwing snow high into the sky. The group fell to the ground, Mira covering Kiro. Eli looked up just in time to see a drone circling above them, larger than the ones from last night. They found us, Mira shouted. Eli pulled out his plasma rifle and fired. The beam hit the drone's side, spinning it off balance but not destroying it. The drone turned, charging its weapon. Lyra raised her trembling hand, and for the first time her veins glowed bright blue. A pulse of light shot from her palm, striking the drone directly. It exploded in a flash of white energy. Mira stared in shock. Whoa, you can fight? Lyra collapsed to her knees, weak again. Not for long. Eli helped her up. We move now. They rushed toward the cliffs as more drones appeared on the horizon. Snow burst around them from the explosions. Kira whimpered softly, clinging to Mira's coat. At last they reached the mouth of an old tunnel half buried in ice. Eli guided them inside, the sound of engines echoing in the distance. The cold air inside the cave was still, almost silent. He turned to Lyra, who was breathing heavily. You said your enemies. Who are they, really? Her glowing eyes met his. Not just enemies. They were once my people, Eli froze. You mean your own kind wants you dead? Lyra nodded slowly. Yes, they fear change. They fear life returning. That is why. You must not let them take the data. Eli tightened his grip on his jacket pocket. Then they'll have to get through me first. Outside, the rumble of engines grew louder. The war she spoke of was already on its way. The cold tunnel was silent except for the soft breathing of the four who hid inside. Eli stood near the entrance, his rifle ready, eyes fixed on the faint light spilling in from outside. Lyra and her child sat deeper inside the cave, wrapped in blankets. Mira stayed beside them, whispering softly to keep Kiro calm. For a few quiet moments it seemed they might have escaped. But then a sound broke through the still air, a deep metallic hum that echoed across the frozen cliffs. Eli's heart sank. He knew that sound. Dropships. He motioned to Mira to stay quiet. The hum grew louder until the cave shook slightly. A dark shadow passed over the snow outside. Through a small crack in the ice, Eli saw 3 sleek alien ships landing nearby. The hunters had arrived. Lyra's eyes widened in fear. They come again, she whispered, clutching her son close. Eli looked back at her. How many? She shook her head weakly. 6, maybe more. Trained killers. Eli tightened his jaw. Then we'll have to outsmart them. He knelt near Mira. Stay with Lyra and Kiro. No matter what you hear, don't come out until I say. Mira grabbed his arm. Dad, please don't go out there. He smiled faintly. I've been through worse. Trust me. He handed her his old side pistol. If anyone comes near that door and it's not me, you shoot. Mira's hands trembled, but she nodded. Okay. Eli climbed carefully toward the cave entrance and peeked through the icy opening. Outside, the hunters were moving like shadows through the snow. Their armor was black with red lights pulsing faintly across it. They carried long plasma rifles and moved in a perfect formation, too skilled to be ordinary mercenaries. One of them held a scanner device sweeping the area. A red beam flickered over the ice. They're using heat signatures, Eli whispered. He quickly pulled his thermal blanket from his pack and covered the crack to block their signal. He crawled back deeper into the tunnel and whispered, We can't stay here. They'll find us in minutes. Lyra looked at him with desperate eyes. They always find. Eli thought for a moment, then looked at her glowing veins. Can you do that light thing again? The energy blast? She shook her head weakly. Takes much energy. I can only once. Maybe twice. That's enough, Eli said. He pointed toward a small side path deeper into the tunnel. There's another exit. You and Mira go that way. I'll draw them off. Mira's eyes went wide. No, Dad. You can't, he smiled, calm but firm. You know I can, and you know I will. Lyra looked at him silently, her expression full of conflict. Finally, she nodded. I will protect your child. Eli handed Mira his necklace, an old metal tag with his name burned into it. Keep this. I'll come find you when it's safe. Then he turned, his rifle ready, and slipped out through the narrow crack. Outside, snow whipped around him as the hunters moved closer. Eli crouched behind a ridge of ice, waiting for his chance. When one of the hunters broke formation to check the wrecked pod, Eli took the shot. The plasma beam hit the target's chest, knocking him down instantly. The others shouted something in their alien tongue and spread out. Red lasers cut through the storm. Eli ran along the ridge, firing again and again, drawing them away from the cave. One hunter activated a drone that scanned the ground. It picked up Eli's heat trail immediately. The drone dived toward him, firing bolts of energy. Eli rolled behind a frozen boulder just as the ground exploded beside him. Come on, he muttered under his breath, switching to his last power cell. He fired again, taking down the drone with a direct hit, but the hunters were closing in. He could see their glowing visors through the fog. There were at least 4 left. Inside the cave, Mira held her breath as the explosions echoed outside. Kiro whimpered softly, and Lyra pressed a hand gently over his back, whispering something in her native tongue, a lullaby full of sorrow. Dad will be okay, Mira whispered to herself, holding the pistol tightly. He promised, then suddenly silence. No more shots. No more footsteps. Only the faint wind. Mira's heart pounded. Dad? She whispered softly. A figure appeared at the mouth of the tunnel. Mira raised the pistol, but stopped. It was Eli, breathing hard, his jacket scorched, a cut on his cheek. Come on, he said quickly. We need to move. I hit their beacon, but they'll call for backup soon. He led them out through the back of the cave, following a narrow path that wound between tall ice pillars. Behind them, the hunters regrouped near the wrecked pod, scanning the ground. From their ship above, one of the alien commanders spoke through his mask. The human interfered again. Find him, kill him. The child must not leave this planet. As Eli guided the group through the frozen maze, the faint glow from Lyra's veins began to pulse again, brighter this time. Your energy, Eli said, noticing the light. You're using it again? Lyra shook her head. No, not me. It's calling. She looked up toward the sky. My people. They will come. And in the distance, through the icy clouds, something shimmered like silver light cutting through the storm. The hunters didn't see it yet. But the rescue she spoke of was already on its way. The storm returned with no warning. Thick snow swirled like ghosts, blinding everything beyond a few steps. The howling wind drowned out all sound, and even the sky disappeared into white. Eli led the group through the narrow path between jagged ice cliffs, his coat torn and his rifle half frozen. Behind him, Mira held Kiro close to her chest, her face red from the cold. Lyra moved weakly beside them, using Eli's arm for balance. They reached a shallow cave, a hollow in the mountain wall, and took shelter inside. The air was slightly warmer, but only barely. Eli dropped his pack and looked around. We rest here, he said. They're still behind us, but the storm will slow them down. Mira nodded, her breath visible in the freezing air. Dad, how long until they find us again? Eli didn't answer right away. He glanced at Lyra, whose glowing veins had dimmed to a faint shimmer. If they have scanners left, he said finally. An hour, maybe less. Lyra touched the wall and closed her eyes. The faint blue light from her skin spread into the ice as if she were sending a signal through it. Eli watched, confused. What are you doing? He asked. Sending pulse, she said softly. If my people still in orbit, they will hear. Won't that also alert your enemies? Eli asked. She looked at him sadly. Yes, but we have no choice. Mira hugged Kiro closer. I hope your people come soon. He's getting cold again. The small alien's breathing was weak and his glowing eyes blinked slowly. Eli added fuel to the small heater, but it flickered. Only one power cell remained. As they huddled together for warmth, the faint hum of engines echoed through the storm again. Eli stood quickly, rifle in hand. They found us. He ran to the cave mouth and peered through the snow. Red lights flickered in the distance, hunter helmets moving fast. At least 5 this time, advancing in a wide arc. They're spreading out, he said. They're trying to corner us. Mira's voice trembled. Dad, what do we do? Eli checked his rifle. We fight. Lyra's eyes glowed faintly again. I will help, she said. Eli shook his head. You're too weak, she met his gaze firmly. So are you. But you still fight, he almost smiled. Fair point. He quickly placed his last 2 heat emitters at the cave entrance. When they scan this, they'll think it's us, he said. The heat will draw them in. Then he grabbed Mira's shoulder. Take them to the back tunnel. There's a shaft that leads outside through the cliff. Wait for my signal. Mira's eyes filled with tears. You're not coming with us? I will, he said, forcing a smile. But someone needs to buy time. She hesitated, then hugged him tightly. Please come back, Dad. I will, he whispered. Now go. Mira helped Lyra and Kiro move toward the back of the cave while Eli crouched near the entrance, waiting. Through the blizzard, the hunters appeared, dark, tall figures glowing red in the snow. Their leader raised a scanner, detecting the fake heat. Eli grinned. Got you. He pressed the trigger. The emitters exploded in a flash of heat and smoke. The blast threw 2 hunters off balance. Eli charged out of the cave, firing his rifle. Blue plasma bolts tore through the snow, hitting another one square in the chest. The others fired back, energy bolts slicing through the air. Eli ducked behind a boulder, returning fire. From inside the cave, Mira could see flashes of light through the storm. Dad, she whispered, trembling. Lyra placed a glowing hand on the cave wall again. The ice around them vibrated faintly. He cannot win alone, she said. Her eyes turned bright blue as energy pulsed through her veins. She raised her hand and a wave of light shot out through the ice tunnel. Outside, the ground beneath the hunters cracked as the buried energy released. 2 of them fell into the crevasse that opened beneath their feet. Eli looked back at the sudden burst of light. Nice trick, he muttered, firing again. But one hunter reached him from behind, striking with a heavy blade. Eli blocked with his rifle, sparks flying. The hunter kicked him hard, sending him tumbling into the snow. Eli rolled over, bleeding, and aimed his weapon. The hunter's red visor glared down at him. You shouldn't have interfered, human. The alien growled through its translator. Eli smiled, coughing. That's what humans do best. He fired point blank. The bolt hit the hunter's chest, knocking him back into the snow. The blizzard roared louder. More hunters approached from the east. Eli could barely see now, but he heard Mira's voice faintly from inside. Dad, this way. He turned and ran toward the cave, firing over his shoulder. One last explosion shook the ground and the cliff face collapsed behind him, sealing the tunnel. Inside, Mira ran to him as he stumbled in, coughing and covered in snow. Dad, she cried. He fell to one knee, gasping. We need to move. They'll dig through soon. But before they could, a deep rumble filled the air. Not from the hunters this time. A silver light cut through the storm, bright as sunrise. Eli looked up through a crack in the ice. A massive ship was descending, glowing with the same blue energy as Lyra's veins. She smiled weakly. My people, she whispered. They heard. The ship's engines roared as beams of light struck down from the clouds, vaporizing the hunters still outside. Mira held Kiro close, tears streaming down her face. We're safe. Eli leaned back against the wall, exhausted but smiling. Took them long enough. But even as the alien rescue ship landed, one question burned in his mind. If Lyra's people had this kind of power, why had she been left alone to die in the first place? Something about this rescue felt too perfect, too fast. And Eli, ever the soldier, knew this wasn't the end. It was only the calm before the next storm. For the first time in days, the wind was silent. The blizzard had stopped. The world outside the cave glowed in soft blue light, reflected from the alien rescue ship that had landed across the frozen plain. Its sleek hull shimmered like liquid silver, humming with quiet power. Eli stood at the entrance, his breath fogging the air as he watched figures move through the snow. They were tall, graceful, and wrapped in glowing armor that made them look more like spirits than soldiers. They carried long staffs of light instead of guns, and their voices echoed through the cold air like a choir. Mira held Cairo close as the rescuers approached. The little alien reached toward them, weak but smiling. His mother, Lyra, stood shakily, her silver-blue veins glowing brighter now that her people were near. "They came," she whispered softly. "They found us." Eli's rifle hung loosely in his hand. Something about the scene felt off. The rescuers didn't look surprised or relieved to find her. They looked serious, too serious. No words of comfort, no rushing forward. Just quiet, deliberate movement. The leader, a tall alien with white markings across his face, stopped in front of Lyra. His eyes were cold, unreadable. "Lyra of the Vayari," he said in a deep, calm voice. "You were ordered to destroy the experiment." Eli's muscles tensed. "Experiment?" Lyra's eyes filled with sorrow. "I couldn't," she whispered. "Not when it worked. Not when I saw life return in my son." The leader's gaze shifted to the small child in Mira's arms. "The child carries the unstable gene. It should not exist," Mira gasped and held Cairo tighter. "What are you saying?" Eli stepped forward, his tone sharp. "She said this boy is the key to saving your people. And your calling hammered like liquid silver, humming with quiet power." Eli stood at the entrance, his breath fogging the air as he watched figures move through the snow. They were tall, graceful, and wrapped in glowing armor that made them look more like spirits than soldiers. They carried long staffs of light instead of guns, and their voices echoed through the cold air like a choir. Mira held Cairo close as the rescuers approached. The little alien reached toward them, weak but smiling. His mother, Lyra, stood shakily, her silver-blue veins glowing brighter now that her people were near. "They came," she whispered softly. "They found us." Eli's rifle hung loosely in his hand. Something about the scene felt off. The rescuers didn't look surprised or relieved to find her. They looked serious, too serious. No words of comfort, no rushing forward, just quiet, deliberate movement. The leader, a tall alien with white markings across his face, stopped in front of Lyra. His eyes were cold, unreadable. "Lyra of the Vayari," he said in a deep, calm voice. "You were ordered to destroy the experiment." Eli's muscles tensed. "Experiment?" Lyra's eyes filled with sorrow. "I couldn't," she whispered. "Not when it worked. Not when I saw life return in my son." The leader's gaze shifted to the small child in Mira's arms. "The child carries the unstable gene. It should not exist." Mira gasped and held Cairo tighter. "What are you saying?" Eli stepped forward, his tone sharp. "She said this boy is the key to saving your people." "And you're calling him unstable?" The alien leader looked at him slowly. "Human, you do not understand our laws. The cure she carries defies the natural balance. It creates life where death was decreed." Eli frowned. "Decreed by who?" The alien paused. "By the High Order, our ancestors. The disease was not an accident, it was our punishment." Lyra's voice trembled. "No, it was never punishment. It was control." The rescuers around them shifted uneasily as if her words were forbidden. The leader's expression darkened. "You speak heresy." Eli raised his rifle slightly. "If you're planning to harm her, that kid, you'll have to get through me first." The alien leader turned his gaze toward Eli. "You have already interfered with our judgment once, human. Do not make it twice." But before he could step closer, Lyra lifted her hand. Her veins flared with radiant light and the air around her shimmered. "No more death," she shouted. "Not for him. Not for anyone." Her energy spread like a wave, pushing back the snow and making the air hum. The leader stumbled back, his armor glowing from the impact. Eli shielded his face from the light, shouting, "Lyra, stop! You'll burn yourself out." She looked at him with tears glowing in her silver eyes. "It's the only way. They will listen only when they feel the truth." The light faded suddenly, leaving her weak and shaking. She collapsed, and Eli rushed to catch her before she hit the ground. Her breathing was shallow, her glow fading. Mira knelt beside them, crying softly. "Mom, she's dying again." Eli looked into Lyra's face. "Stay with me," he said. Her voice was faint but calm. "Listen, human. What I gave you. The memory core. It holds the truth. My people must see it, or this cycle will never end." Eli reached into his coat, pulling out the small data drive he had kept hidden. "This?" She nodded weakly. "Yes. There is more than a cure inside. There is proof." that the High Order used the plague to control who lived and who did not. It will change everything. Her hand trembled as she reached up and touched his face. Her fingers were cold, but her eyes were warm. Promise me. You will show them. Promise me you'll protect him. She looked toward Cairo. Eli nodded. You have my word. She smiled faintly. Then maybe hope still exists. Her eyes dimmed, the glow fading completely. The air around her stilled. Mira cried quietly, hugging Cairo close as he whimpered softly, sensing his mother's life slip away. The alien leader stepped forward, lowering his weapon. His voice was quiet now. She was brave, he said. But she defied the order. Her life ends as it was meant to. Eli stood slowly, rage burning in his eyes. You call that justice? She just saved your entire species. The alien didn't answer. He looked to his soldiers and gave a silent command. 2 of them stepped forward to take the child. Eli raised his rifle instantly. Don't take 1 step. The aliens froze. The leader stared at him, surprised by the fury in his voice. She trusted me, Eli said, his voice low but steady, and I won't let you turn her child into another victim of your order. For a long moment, no one moved. Only the soft hum of the ship filled the silence. Then, surprisingly, the leader lowered his staff. Very well, he said quietly. The human will keep the child. Eli frowned. Why the change of heart? The alien's gaze shifted toward Lyra's still body, because her sacrifice awakened something. He looked toward the sky where faint ripples of blue light were spreading, pulsing through the clouds. The truth she spoke has already begun to travel. He turned to leave. But know this, human. The order will come for you. Protect what she gave you, or her hope dies with her. The rescuers lifted off, leaving behind silence and light snow drifting from the sky. Eli stood there, holding Lyra's hand one last time before letting it fall gently to her side. Mira looked up at him, eyes full of tears. Dad, what happens now? Eli looked at the glowing horizon where the ship had vanished. He tightened his grip on the data drive in his hand. We finish what she started, he said quietly, no matter who comes for us. The world was silent again. Only the whisper of falling snow filled the air. The alien ship had vanished into the clouds, leaving behind a soft blue glow that slowly faded across the frozen plain. Eli stood beside Lyra's body, his coat flapping in the wind. The small child, Cairo, slept against Mira's shoulder, wrapped tightly in her arms. His faint blue glow had dimmed, but he was alive. Mira wiped her eyes. She's really gone, isn't she? Eli nodded slowly. Yeah, she's gone. He crouched down, brushing a bit of snow off Lyra's still hand. Her silver skin was cold now, her veins no longer glowing, yet somehow she looked peaceful. He whispered softly, You did it. You kept your promise. Above them, the clouds began to clear, revealing a dark sky full of stars. The faint hum of distant thunder echoed, not from a storm but from engines. Eli looked up sharply. Dad? Mira said, following his gaze. Is that them again? But it wasn't the same ships. This one was smaller, faster, older, a human-made cruiser. Its dark hull bore the symbol of the Frontier Relief Corps, a forgotten humanitarian fleet from before the border wars. A voice crackled through Eli's old wrist communicator, the one he hadn't heard in years. Unidentified signal. This is Commander Reyes of the FRC patrol ship Halcyon Dawn. We detected an alien energy surge. Identify yourself. Eli hesitated. Then he pressed the comm. Name's Eli Trask, former Recon Division Terran Fleet. I have survivors here, 1 human miner, 1 alien child. And a pause. Then the voice replied, Copy that. Hold position. We're coming in. Mira's eyes widened. Humans, Dad. Real humans. Eli smiled faintly. Guess we're not alone after all. Minutes later, the ship descended through the clouds, its engines lighting up the ice below. The landing ramp extended, and 3 figures in old but clean armor approached, weapons lowered. The leader, Commander Reyes, was a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and a steady voice. She looked around, taking in the wreckage, the frozen plains, and the alien woman's body. What happened here, soldier? Eli handed her the small data drive. That's the story. A cure, a secret, and a death worth more than any war I ever fought. Reyes took the drive carefully. We'll analyze it aboard the ship. Her gaze softened as she looked at Mira and the sleeping alien child. He's not human, is he? Mira shook her head. His name's Kiro. His mom saved us. Reyes nodded quietly. Then we'll save him in return. They carried Lyra's body aboard first, laying her gently on a clean sheet in the ship's medical bay. Mira placed a small blue crystal she'd found near Lyra's hand beside her, a tiny shard that had fallen from her necklace during the fight. So she won't be alone, she whispered. Eli watched her, proud and heavy-hearted. Then he turned to Reyes. Commander, there's something else you need to know. The aliens who attacked, they'll come looking. For her child. For that drive, Reyes frowned. Then we'll make sure they find nothing but fire. As the ship lifted off, Mira stood by the window watching the ground fall away. The snow shimmered like diamonds in the moonlight. Dad, she said softly, do you think they'll ever stop fighting? Her people. Our people? Eli sighed. Maybe not soon. But if the truth gets out, if that cure spreads, maybe one day. He looked at Kiro, who stirred in Mira's arms, his small glowing hand gripping her sleeve. Maybe this little guy is where it starts. Hours passed as they soared through the upper atmosphere. Reyes joined them in the observation deck, holding the data drive. Eli, she said, I've seen encrypted alien tech before, but this is something else. Whatever's inside, it's rewriting itself. Like it's alive, Eli frowned. Alive? Reyes nodded. Or maybe aware. The moment we plugged it in, it linked with our systems and sent a signal. Mira gasped. To who? Reyes turned toward the viewport. That's the part that worries me. Outside, space shimmered. A ripple of blue light spread across the stars, the same glow that had surrounded Lyra before she died. It wasn't just a signal. It was spreading, broadcasting across multiple systems. Eli whispered. She said the truth would travel. Reyes crossed her arms. Looks like it just did. A new light appeared on the ship's radar, a massive signature far off growing rapidly. The crew exchanged uneasy glances. Another fleet? One officer asked. Reyes nodded slowly. No doubt. But we don't know which side. Eli put a hand on Mira's shoulder. Whatever happens, we stay together. The girl smiled through her fear. Always. As the ship continued through the quiet void, Kiro woke. His small voice was barely a whisper, but it carried warmth. Mama's safe now? Eli knelt beside him. Yeah, kid. She's safe, and we'll make sure her dream stays alive. The boy smiled weakly, his hand glowing brighter. The same light pulsed faintly through the walls of the ship, spreading warmth instead of cold. Reyes stared at the glow. What's he doing? Eli smiled faintly. I think he's saying thank you. They all watched in silence as the faint blue light filled the ship, gentle and soft. It wrapped around Lyra's body in the medical bay, around the engines, and finally around the stars beyond the window. Somehow, it didn't feel like goodbye, it felt like beginning. As the halcyon dawn drifted into open space, Eli whispered, Rest easy. Lyra, we'll finish your fight. And outside among the stars, her final gift, a wave of living light spread from planet to planet, carrying her message through the galaxy. Life deserves to begin again.